Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky.
The day he found out he had ALS, Brian also found out that if he killed someone, he'd get the rest of their time. What he didn't realize until after his visit with the neonatal ward was that getting more time was not the same as being cured, and that he would now be forced to endure a full lifetime of his symptoms, no matter what. I thought it was just another migraine. I was wrong. By Opposite Action 994. It started around the first of the month, with my contacts, I think. That's what they tell me anyway. Screens still kind of bother me. I have to keep the brightness setting pretty low, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was. See, I'm nearsighted, and my morning routine is usually to put on music, wash my face, then pop in my contacts. But I have a bad habit of not putting them in right away. I usually end up watching a quick video, or a particular story catches my attention just long enough to make me forget what I'm doing. This time I was flicking through music, just trying to get the right jam to help me start my day. When I reached for my contact, I felt something lightly tap my hand along with the sound of a soft click. A fly, a big one too. It had bumped into me, apparently having landed near my contacts and taking off just as I reached for my first lens. The thing buzzed around my head, then took to circling the room before eventually finding its way out the open window. It still managed to smack into the glass a couple of times before figuring it out. I didn't think anything of it. Who would? Flies were everywhere down here in the summer. The heat makes their numbers swell in disgusting quantities. Maybe it was the fly. They say it was more likely I didn't keep the area clean, maybe didn't wash my hands. No real way to tell at this point, but they say the timeline matches up. After that, it was my business as usual for the rest of the day. It was 2 days later when the problem started. I woke up to red, itchy eyes reflecting back at me from my phone screen. There was a sensation like grit, like I managed to get dust or sand lodged under my eyelids. And no matter how much I rubbed, it just wouldn't come out. Eye drops helped ease things a little, but it never really stopped. My eyes got so red that I started to worry people would think that I'd been crying. Even in the office, I found it hard to focus on my monitor. I tried reading through the latest email HR had sent out about some new dress code policy when I felt a dull ache start to form at the back of my eyes, a not too unfamiliar pressure building. Fantastic. I was getting another migraine. The pain only softened when I closed them. Darkness soothing the ache but not the itch. When I cracked them open again, the world started to blur. Light sensitivity was nothing new for me during these migraines, but this one seemed to come on more suddenly. I lowered the brightness on my monitor, opened my desk drawer to pull out some off-brand aspirin, and tried to power through the day until I could get home to a dark room. By the end of it, my head was pounding. Every light I passed caused a little more pain, like I'd been staring into the sun. The drive home was awful. I already hated the people who passed me on my way home every night, but this made me start contemplating whether it was legal to bust out headlights in self-defense. I live a little ways out of town, and the roads get dark at night. More than one idiot out there has decided regular headlamps weren't good enough. No, they needed blinding white headlamps and light bars, which meant every new driver caused a wave of pounding pain to hit me in the temples and make my head feel ready to pop. I don't know how I made it home with half the drive spent squinting, trying to avoid another flashbang. It felt like heaven to collapse into a warm bath with the lights off, the usual trick for soothing my migraines. Dipping my head under the hot, lavender-scented water was the only real relief I'd gotten all day. I managed to fall asleep pretty easily after that, tired from work, head pain, and the relaxation from the hot water. I woke up the next day mostly better. It wasn't unusual for these migraines to last a day or two, and I was just thankful that this one seemed to be tapering off. My eyes still itched, but the severity was down. Instead of the puffy red mess they had been before, they now just had an unhealthy pink tinge from the residual irritation. I chalked it up to allergies. I've always had bad issues with pollen, and the symptoms matched, aside from the lack of runny nose. The only thing really odd at that point was that certain light bothered me more than others. Monitors, cell phone screens, and headlamps all seemed brighter, but sunlight didn't. I stood outside on a bright afternoon and felt perfectly fine until I heard a ping from my pocket and tried to check a text from my boss. So I started avoiding screens as best I could. Not easy working an office job, but I managed. Every time an office coffee run needed to be done, I was there. Needed to answer calls? Better than trying to read emails, and most of what I did was just taking notes for clients anyway. The boss didn't care if they were on paper as long as he got them. I started leaving on my breaks. I'd drive 10 minutes out to the edge of town and just sit in my car. The warm sun felt nice on my skin, and the colors of the wildflowers seemed more vibrant than usual. Purples and red popped. Green seemed deeper. I never really noticed red flowers around here before. Even the tree trunks seemed more colorful, more alive. I still remember running my hands along the trunk of a big, beautiful tree, soaking in the feeling of a sun-warmed bark on my palm. It was nice. The pressure in my eyes would dull, away from the noise and light I've been slogging through. I could just take in the sights, but I'll admit, all the time near the outdoors made the city feel worse by comparison. The red brick building I passed every day seemed washed out compared to the wildflowers. The gray sidewalks looked duller and more worn each time I noticed them. The only thing that still seemed to pop were the traffic signs. It was like they had been polished. Stop signs of fire engine red, street signs of vibrant green against the gray. The ride home became a mixed blessing. The woods, even at night, especially at night, looked better than I remembered. Leaves rustling in the breeze, the air smelled clean. Wind brushing against my skin. I started rolling the windows down and cruising instead of rushing home to fit in a show or game before bed. I was still taking eye drops. Everything was in bloom, and I figured pollen was the culprit. I also assumed I was noticing my floaters more because I'd been obsessing over my vision. It felt like they moved, no longer limp, stringy lines near the center of my vision, but faint, wavy lines near the peripheral. They kept making me think I was seeing something out of the corner of my eyes during my walk. I never really panicked. I assumed it was a squirrel or a shift in the bushes, until I focused and saw the slow drift of those damn floaters. Looking back, I don't remember my eyes itching on those walks at all. I just wandered down the vague path that was starting to form. Eventually, work started piling up, and I had a backlog of client questions and calls I've been putting off. Normally, I'd have things like that done already, but I've been busy helping in ways that got me out of the office. The boss started sending vague emails about productivity. I finally put in for half a day to see a doctor, and thankfully, it was approved.
Good news, it's probably nothing serious.
His tone was always flat, which I liked. It felt less performative. He had me look into a light to test my pupils and muttered something about sluggish response, but said irritation can cause that.
Probably just allergies, maybe pink eye if we're unlucky. As for light sensitivity, it's likely a bad migraine. Are you taking your medications?
Of course I was. I've been taking the same handful of vitamins and prescriptions for years. He pulled down my eyelids and had me look up.
You've got a small conjunctival concretion. It's not dangerous. Probably unrelated to your symptoms.
He clicked off his light, prescribing strong drops, and told me to call if it didn't improve in a week. They helped. The gritty feeling eased, and I managed to sleep. The next morning, I felt decent. Still exhausted, but better. I even cleared a few dozen emails. Then, the following morning, I opened my phone and felt a strong pang of my eye strain creeping back in. No big deal. Probably still healing. But by the time I was dressed and out the door, I could feel it. The rough, almost hair-like itch. He couldn't chew me out. I've been bringing him his favorite coffee every other day. Tiffany in the next cubicle said I looked tired. Said I'd been jumpy. I blamed allergies and waved her off. Sleep became harder to find. I could only rest if I took a short loop through the woods first. Normally, I never walk through bushes at night, but the moonlight seemed bright enough lately, giving everything a silvery sheen. I even spotted a few fireflies. I'd never seen them around here before. Movies don't do them justice. It wasn't yellow so much as a faint white glow fading in and out. I took out my phone and snapped a few pictures of the scenery, but every one, aside from killing my eyes with a flash, came out wrong. Like some kind of filter had toned everything down. I couldn't see the flowers, and the fireflies just looked like white dots. I figured it was because the phone was old and probably not great at night photos. Eventually, I stopped bringing it. All it did was ruin the silence with a notification or make my eyes hurt when I checked to text. After that, the irritation gradually came back. Every minute my chair became more uncomfortable. Eventually, I was going to the bathroom every other hour, part to apply eye drops, part to get a break from the glow of my monitor. I remember standing in front of the mirror, pulling down my lower eyelid to study the inflamed red lines cracking through the pink white of my eye. I even wondered if the tiny white dots near the bottom, what the doctor had called a conception, maybe they were pushing outwards from the inside of my lid. I tried gently prodding one with a fingertip. It felt like it shifted, like it receded. I think people started suspecting something. Conversations got shorter. They began using the water cooler on the opposite side of the building, keeping their distance. It didn't help that I was starting to lose focus. I think the lack of sleep was getting to me. I kept catching myself standing near the window, zooming out while looking towards the tree line in the distance. I got drug tested that week. Came back clean, obviously. They said it was random, but I know that's a lie. I drifted through the rest of the week, productivity dropping and emails from my manager becoming less routine and more passive-aggressive. The issue with the lights were getting worse. I started driving early in the morning and late at night just to avoid traffic. The exhaustion must have been getting to me because I could have sworn the office plants in the corner had never bloomed before. But now it clearly had patches of red. Even my walks weren't doing me much good. Whenever I hit the end of my little path and turn around, all the tension and discomfort would ratchet back up with every step towards home. The moonlight would feel dimmer. and it started taking me longer and longer to get back and into bed. 3 days or so after my checkup, I was walking deeper in than usual, just letting my legs carry me with the hopes I'd wear myself out enough to get some decent sleep. I'd unintentionally made a little trail through the bushes, which just made it easier to lose myself to the motion of one foot in front of the other. I still remember rounding that kind of bent tree, stopping and taking a deep breath, just letting the moment pass and enjoying the earthy smell of damp soil and the tranquility of it all. When I opened my eyes again, I saw something I still have some troubles really describing. The woods were quiet, far enough from the road that there wasn't even the occasional whoosh of a car breaking the peace. At first I thought maybe I stumbled across someone else on a walk when I saw the white dot. Figured it was a flashlight. Then it winked out, causing me to stop mid-stride. A soft glow, a little further off now, bright enough to make the moonlight look dim. It was beautiful, if confusing. The closest thing I could compare it to would be a halo radiating colors and faint, swirling motions. It dimmed, then brightened again, further off. Something about it made everything else fade away, like seeing the stars for the first time. Could fireflies do that? Was this why people always act like they're such a big deal? I tried to get closer, but it seemed to have just disappeared. Standing there, trying to puzzle it out, something hit me. My eyes didn't hurt. For the first time in days, they actually felt normal. Then it bloomed again, a soft glow to my left, and I found myself shifting, walking towards it. I walked softly, trying not to scare it away so I could get a closer look, and that's how the rest of my walk went. It would fade and leave me in darkness, then somewhere off ahead it would brighten again, and I'd follow. I only realized I was lost when the sun started to rise. I was in the part of the woods I'd never gone to before, standing in front of a rather large tree. Not giant, but definitely older than the trees around it. It seemed lush, a small oasis of light in the middle of the thicker patch of woods. That wasn't what stood out, though. The tree was covered in softly glowing light. I finally gotten close enough that I noticed the buzzing. The space was filled with it. A louder buzzing zipping past my ear, making me turn to watch the dim glowing ball of light land on a nearby bush. The glow swelled, then dimmed, thin streaks of red and yellow bleeding away from the light until all I could see was the shape of a plump black fly. It sat there, rubbing its little legs together. I expected something lithe, something delicate, maybe with a bulb-lit abdomen, not something that looked so much like the same pests I've been dealing with all summer. A few still glowed, buzzing and landing here and there, but as the sunlight filtered through the trees, the orbs winked out one by one, leaving behind patches of tiny, erratically moving black specks. The tree that, in the dark, I had mistaken for something beautiful now showed its truth. Black rotted away in wide patches, its trunk pitted and raw. It was bare of leaves. Only the surrounding trees had lent it that illusion in the dim light of night. The pressure building behind my eyes snapped me back, my vision blurred, even as I squinted tight, trying to force it into focus. It wasn't like the headaches. It was worse. It felt like something was pressing in from the edge of my skull, forcing my eyes forward, making them shift in their sockets. Blinking hurt, the gritty feeling I've been dealing with now something closer to pinpricks that punished every attempt to squeeze my eyelids shut. I would instinctively squint, only to be immediately forced to open them wide again from the sharp, stabbing sensation. I barely noticed the tears hitting my cheeks, warm liquid running down my chilled skin. I slid my hands down my face, mostly just succeed in smearing my tears across my skin. Then I felt a tingling on my palm. It almost tickled. Something shifted, and I just figured I grabbed a fly somehow. They seemed to be everywhere now. Buzzing that had been a dull background drone earlier was suddenly much louder. When one smacked me in the forehead, I noticed how many were landing on me. They crawled from my arm towards my hand I used to wipe my face, and, judging by the tickling on my forehead, down my cheek as well. I even had to flick a few of the braver ones away from my eyes as their little feet scurried down my brow. I flicked and shook my arm, but they were persistent. Even as I backed away, the little bastards kept smacking into me in their attempts to roost. Something forced me to blink, a fly nearly flying directly into my left eye. The pain made me gasp, and the sensation of something hitting the back of my throat, something I could feel buzzing, sent me into a coughing fit, lurching forward and putting my hands on my knees to brace myself. I was laying over, staring at the ground, at a black shape, thin, but taking up a good chunk of the vision in my left eye. The thought of Fly's legs came to mind, and the thought made me wrench. Sitting there in the center of my left eye was a crooked black line, one that I delicately reached up to wipe away, only for it to squirm, shift in a jagged motion, left then right until seemingly swimming out of sight. The realization hit me. The sensation of movement had never really stopped. Not the feeling of tiny feet, but something wetter, smoother. And it was getting worse. I brought my fingertips to the wet feeling on my cheek, and they came away sticky, covered in something tacky with little chunks of white. What I thought were just tears had been dripping down my face and chin. It tasted bitter, and when something wiggled on my tongue, I couldn't hold it anymore. I dropped my hands and knees, vomit hitting the forest floor, and immediately becoming swarmed with crawling, buzzing life. A few faint flickers of light in the shade above my prone body, the only thing breaking up the scene. With shaking hands, I found a nearby tree, the blur of my vision growing worse by the second. I dug my fingers into the rough bark and managed to hurl myself up onto my feet. I leaned there, trying to spit out the last bit of acid that was burning the back of my throat, and tried to focus. At the time, I thought it was just because I held my eyes open so long, although even after I managed to close them without feeling like I'd sliced them open, my vision didn't refocus. The forest was nothing more than loosely defined shapes, like I was looking through a pair of glasses that weren't made for me. I stumbled away from the big tree, slapping at every feeling of something brushing or moving on my bare skin. I thought if I just went the opposite direction of it, I'd hopefully be walking back roughly the way I came. It wasn't long before it started to get dark, and I had to push back the rising panic. It was early morning. The sun was high in the sky. My light jog turned into a slow walk after bumping into my first bush, then a slow slide shift after bumping into a log. After a while, all I could see was darkness. At some point, I heard a light rumble in the distance, which rapidly passed by me with an obnoxious honk blaring off in the distance. I tapped my foot against the ground, solid. I found the road. Somebody eventually stopped for me, thank God, and got me to a hospital. By the time they actually took me in, my vision was already returning. The guy who picked me up hadn't stayed around, but according to somebody who'd been waiting next to me, my eyes were milk white when I walked in. They said I had something like corneal edema. Apparently, all the irritation I've been experiencing lately can make your corneas swell and block out light. But I don't think that's right. When I got home and started looking over the cuts and bruises I'd gotten, I noticed something small and white on the sleeve of my shirt. I tried to gently pick it up with my fingertips, but only managed to smear it in the fiber of my shirt. My finger came back with a familiar tacky sensation. I like to think As the Raven Dreams are playing the doctor in this story for me, and the writer of this story is also on YouTube. Both their links will be down in the description box, so please check them out. Just ignore my granddad's language. He's from a different time. Believe it or not, there was a brief window in history where most of our country agreed with him that those subhuman freaks deserved equal rights. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. If you have a story you'd like me to narrate, whether true or fictional, you can send it my way 3 different ways. All the links are down below for you guys. And of course, I'd like to thank the writers who let me read their stories this evening. I don't know what the main character had in her eyes, but all I can think of is, I never want to deal with that. It sounds disgusting and horrible, and not being able to look at screens at all would be terrible for me, at least. My best guess is fly eggs, due to how many flies she was seeing, but who knows? It is a horror story, and they do like to throw wrenches into your ideas. And just so you guys know, I'm going to have a bunch of new voices for our night stories, aka the fictional ones. Most of them are pretty short parts like Riven played tonight, but I have one lined up that's going to be quite a bit bigger. I wanted to give you guys a heads up for something to look forward to, and there'll all be new voices to the channel. Now, if you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, please subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. And please hype the video so others can find these lovely stories as well. And of course, I would absolutely love a comment. Tell me what you thought, what kind of stories you like in the future. And if you got this far, leave me a comment saying anything but the eyes in the comment. If you're listening on the podcast or are able to, please leave a review and a comment. If you're willing to help this channel and podcast grow, please share it with anyone who might enjoy it. It helps quite a bit. And if you're willing to help in a more financial way, like the lovely people on screen right now, thank you guys as always. I do have Patreon and memberships where you get early access and a few other bonuses. But if you want to do more of a one-time thing, I do have PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and Super Thanks. But as always, guys, thank you for watching and listening. It always has and always will mean the world to me. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.